Kannon, Avalokiteshvara by Eihei Dogen. From Shobogenzo, the treasury of the true Dharma Eye. Great Master Ungan Muju asked Great Master Shu-Itsu of Dogozan Mountain, "What does the Bodhisattva of great compassion do by using his limitlessly abundant hands and eyes?" Dogo says, "He is like a person in the night, reaching back with a hand to grope for a pillow." Ungan says, "I understand, I understand." Dogo says, "How do you understand?" Ungan says, "The whole body is hands and eyes." Dogo says, "Your words are nicely spoken. At the same time, your expression of the truth is just 80 or 90% of realization." Ungan says, "I am just like this. How about you, brother?" Dogo says, "The thoroughly realized body is hands and eyes." Many voices expressing the truth of Kannon have been heard, before and since, but none has been equal to Ungan and Dogo. If we want to learn Kannon in experience, we should investigate the present words of Ungan and Dogo. The Bodhisattva of great compassion, described now, is the Bodhisattva regarder of the sounds of the world. He is also called the Bodhisattva free in reflection. He is studied as the father and mother of all the Buddhas. Do not learn that he is a lesser expression of the truth than the Buddhas. He is the past Tathagata, clarifier of the right Dharma. Then let us take up and investigate the words spoken by Ungan. What does the Bodhisattva of great compassion do by using his limitlessly abundant hands and eyes? There are lineages that maintain and rely upon Kannon, and there are lineages that have never dreamt of Kannon. Kannon is present in Ungan, who has been experiencing it together with Dogo. And not only one or two Kannons, but hundreds of thousands of Kannons are experiencing the same state as Ungan. Kannon is really allowed to be Kannon, only in the order of Ungan. Why? The difference between the Kannon expressed by Ungan and the Kannon expressed by other Buddhas is the difference between being able to express the truth and not being able to express the truth. The Kannon expressed by other Buddhas is only 12 faces. Ungan is not like that. The Kannon expressed by other Buddhas is merely 1,000 hands and eyes. Ungan is not like that. The Kannon expressed by other Buddhas is just 84,000 hands and eyes. Ungan is not like that. How can we recognize that it is so? Because when Ungan says, "The Bodhisattva of great compassion is using his limitlessly abundant hands and eyes," the words limitlessly abundant do not mean only 84,000 hands and eyes. How much less could they describe only kinds numbered as 12 or 32 or 33? limitlessly abundant means countless. It is an expression of infinite abundance, of diversity without restriction. Given that the diversity is originally unrestricted, we should not limit it, even with a measure of limitlessness. We should learn in practice the arithmetic of using limitless abundance like this. It is already beyond the bounds of countlessness and limitlessness. Now when the words of Ungan take up the words limitlessly abundant hands and eyes, Dogo never says that the words express nothing, and there may be import in this. Ungan and Dogo, since becoming fellow students under Yaku-san, have already practiced together for 40 years, in which time they have discussed stories of the past and present, weeding out the false and verifying the true. Because they have been continuing like this, today, in speaking of limitlessly abundant hands and eyes, Ungan speaks and Dogo verifies. Remember, limitlessly abundant hands and eyes have been expressed equally by the two eternal Buddhas. Limitlessly abundant hands and eyes, clearly, are a state that Ungan and Dogo are experiencing together. Now Ungan is asking Dogo, the use does what? We should not liken this question to questions asked by teachers of sutras and teachers of commentaries, or by bodhisattvas at the 10 sacred stages or 3 clever stages. This question has manifested an assertion. It has manifested hands and eyes. While Ungan now says, using limitlessly abundant hands and eyes does what? There may be old Buddhas and new Buddhas who are realizing Buddha by virtue of his effort. He might equally have said, utilizing limitlessly abundant hands and eyes does what? And there might equally have been expressions of doing something, or moving something, or expressing something. Dogo says, he is like a person in the night, reaching back with a hand to grope for a pillow. This means that the bodhisattva is like, for example, a person in the night who reaches back with a hand and gropes for a pillow. To grope for means to search around for. In the night is an expression of the darkness. It is like speaking of seeing the mountains in the light of day. The use of hands and eyes is like a person in the night reaching back with a hand to grope for a pillow. On this basis, we should learn the use of hands and eyes. We should examine the difference between night-time, as it is supposed in the light of day, and the night-time, as it is in the night. In sum, we should examine it as that time which is not day or night. When people grope for a pillow, though we do not comprehend that this behavior is just like Kannon using hands and eyes, we cannot escape the truth that it is like that. Is the person in the words like a person, only a word in a metaphor? Or is this person being a normal person, no ordinary person. If studied as a normal person in Buddhism, the person is not only metaphorical, in which case there is something to be learned in the groping for a pillow. Even pillows have certain shapes and grades that deserve inquiry. The night-time, too, is not necessarily only the night-time of the day and night of human beings and gods. Remember, what is now being discussed is neither grasping the pillow, nor pulling in the pillow, nor pushing away the pillow. Dogo is speaking of reaching back with a hand in the night to grope for a pillow. And if we are to examine the state that Dogo is expressing, we should notice, we should not disregard, that eyes realize the night. A hand that is groping for a pillow has not yet touched the edge of the pillow. If reaching back with the hands is essential, is it essential to reach back with the eyes? We should clarify the night-time. Might it be called the world of hands and eyes? Does it have a person's hands and eyes? Is it simply hands and eyes alone, flashing by like a thunderbolt? Is it one instance or two instances of hands and eyes, which are right from beginning to end? When we closely examine principles like these, the use of limitlessly abundant hands and eyes is present. But still, just who is the Bodhisattva of great compassion? It is as if all that can be heard is the Bodhisattva of hands and eyes. In that case, we might ask, what does the Bodhisattva of hands and eyes do by using his limitlessly abundant Bodhisattvas of great compassion? Remember, hands and eyes do not hinder each other. At the same time, their use doing what is the ineffable functioning, and is the use of the ineffable. When the ineffable expresses the truth, we should not expect to be able to express the whole of hands and eyes, although the whole of hands and eyes has never been hidden as the whole of hands and eyes. Unhidden hands and eyes exist at that concrete place, and unhidden hands and eyes exist at this concrete place. But they are not the self. They are not the mountains and oceans. They are not the face of the sun and the face of the moon, and they are not the mind here and now as Buddha. Ungan's words, I understand, are not saying that I understand the words of Dogo. In speaking of the hands and eyes that use the ineffable, and in causing them to express the truth, Ungan says, I understand. This might be freedom in using this place, and might be freedom in having to get into today. Dogo's words, how do you understand, are another way of saying, I understand. Although they do not get in the way of Ongo's expression, I understand. Dogo has his own words, which are, how do you understand? This common state of Ungan and Dogo is already, I understand, you understand. Could it be other than eyes understand, hands understand? Is it understanding that has been realized, or is it understanding that has not been realized yet? The understanding described by I understand is the I itself. At the same time, we should consider its existence as you, in how do you understand? With respect to the words of Ungan, which have been manifested in the present, that the whole body is hands and eyes. There are very many canons who, when orating upon reaching back with a hand in the night to grope for a pillow, study that Ungan has said that the whole body is the same as hands and eyes. These canons, though they are canons who have not yet expressed themselves. When Ungan says, the whole body is hands and eyes, he is not saying that hands and eyes are a body which is everywhere. Being everywhere is the whole world, but the very moment of the body hands and body eyes cannot be pervaded by being everywhere. Even if there is, in the body hands and body eyes, the virtue of being everywhere, they cannot be hands and eyes that would rob from a street market. At the same time, the virtue of hands and eyes should not be seeing, practicing, or preaching that recognizes rightness. Hands and eyes have already been described as limitlessly abundant. They are beyond thousands, beyond 10,000s, beyond 84,000s, and beyond countlessness and limitlessness. It is not only the whole body as hands and eyes which is like this. Saving the living and preaching the Dharma may be like this, and the radiance of national lands may be like this. Therefore, Ungan's expression may be the whole body as hands and eyes. We should learn in practice that he does not make hands and eyes into the whole body. Though we use the whole body as hands and eyes, though we make it into our movements and demeanours, active and passive, we must not disturb it. Dogo says, your words are nicely spoken. At the same time, your expression of the truth is just 80 or 90% of realization. The point here is that expression of the truth is speaking to a nicety. Speaking to a nicety means hitting the target by speaking, clearly manifesting something by speaking, and leaving nothing unexpressed. When what has hitherto been unexpressed is finally expressed, so that nothing remains that words might express, the expression of the truth is just 80 or 90% of realization. Even if study of this point is realized 100%, if the power to speak has not been perfected, that is not mastery of the state. An expression of the truth is 80 or 90% of realization. At the same time, the words to be spoken may be spoken 80 or 90% perfectly, or they may be spoken 100% perfectly. At the very moment when Ungan speaks, he can express himself in 100,000 myriad expressions of the truth. But his power is so wonderful that, utilizing a bit of his power, he simply expresses the truth in the state of 80 or 90% of realization. Even if, for example, we would need the power of 100,000 myriads to summon up the whole universe in the 10 directions, to try may be better than not taking it up at all. A person such as Ungan, then, who can summon up the whole universe with the power of one, must be beyond ordinary power. The meaning of the present 80 or 90% of realization is like this. Nevertheless, people understand when they hear the Buddhist patriarch's words, your expression of the truth is just 80 or 90% of realization, that expressions of the truth can be 100% of realization. And so an expression of the truth which does not reach that level is called 80 or 90% of realization. If the Buddha Dharma were like that, it could not have reached the present day. We must learn through experience that the said 80 or 90% of realization is like saying hundreds of thousands, or like saying limitless abundance. Dogo has said already 80 or 90% of realization, and we have seen that he means we must not be restricted to 8s or 9s. Stories of the Buddhist patriarchs are studied like this. When Ungan says, "I am just like this. How about you, brother?" he speaks about being just like this, because he wants to make Dogo himself speak words that Dogo has called expression of 80 or 90% of realization. This being just like this is not retaining any new sign or old trace. At the same time, it is arms being long and sleeves being short. The words I have just spoken are imperfect in expression, but I will leave them as they are, is not the meaning of I am just like this. Dogo says, the thoroughly realized body is hands and eyes. These words do not mean that hands and eyes, as hands and eyes each existing independently, are a thoroughly realized body. The thoroughly realized body, as hands and eyes, is expressed. The thoroughly realized body is hands and eyes. So Dogo also is not saying that the body is the same as hands and eyes. Using limitlessly abundant hands and eyes describes the limitless abundance of using hands and using eyes, in which state hands and eyes are inevitably the thoroughly realized body as hands and eyes. If someone were to ask, whatever is he doing by using limitlessly abundant bodies and minds? There might be in answer the expression of the truth that thoroughly realized body is the doing of whatever. Furthermore, it is not true that comparing Ungan's whole and Dogo's thoroughly realized, one is perfect in expression and the other is imperfect in expression. Ungan's whole and Dogo's thoroughly realize are both beyond relative comparisons. Rather, it may simply be that in the limitlessly abundant hands and eyes of each respective master, such words are present. So the Kannon, of which the Old One Shakyamuni speaks, is only 1,000 hands and eyes, or 12 faces, or 33 bodies, or 84,000. The Kannon of Ungan and Dogo is limitlessly abundant hands and eyes, though it is beyond discussion of abundance and scarcity. When they learn in experience Ungan and Dogo's Kannon of limitlessly abundant hands and eyes, all the Buddhas realize Kannon Samadhi as 80 or 90% realization. Preached to the assembly on the 25th day of the 4th lunar month in the 3rd year of Ninji. Now, since the Buddhidharma came from the West, many Buddhist patriarchs have spoken of Kannon, but they have not equalled Ungan and Dogo. Therefore, I have spoken of only this latter Kannon. In the teaching of Great Master Yoka Shinkaku, there are the words, "The state of not seeing a single Dharma is called the Tathagata," or it can be called the Bodhisattva free in reflection. This is verification that the Tathagata and Kannon simultaneously manifest this body, and that they are not separate bodies. There is the encounter between Myoku and Rinzai concerning true hands and eyes. It is one hand and one eye among the limitlessly abundant. In the teaching of Unmon, there is the Kannon who on seeing sights clarifies the mind, and on hearing sounds realizes the truth. What sound or sight could be other than the Bodhisattva, regarder of the sounds of the world, seeing and hearing? In the teaching of Hyakujo, there is Kannon's gate of entry into truth. In orders of the Surangama, there is the Kannon of all-pervading realization. In orders of the flower of Dharma, There is the Kannon, who is universally manifest on all sides. All these are in the same state as Buddha, and are in the same state as mountains, rivers, and the earth. At the same time, they are just one or two instances of limitlessly abundant hands and eyes.